Hello and welcome to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. This is the ultimate 2023 Cricket World Cup preview. We have a full house today. I'm joined by DJ, who's in London, Varun in Europe, and I'm your host, Ashwin. We are super excited. It's been a little bit of an up and down journey. Varun said last time, I think, about a month ago, none of us were that excited about the ODI World Cup. But Varun, something about being 4 days out from the start of it, and you're sending fantasy league invites, which we'll talk about later. We're doing a preview. The excitement is here, right?
Yeah, it just is. And that's the thing about World Cups and world events. And I think we've been lucky over the last few years that we've got to do previews of World Cup and IPL in the same year. So it's almost like every 6 months we've got a big tournament to talk about. And it's been super. Like, I'm actually excited now. I'm just a little bit upset that these warm up games have been washed out because I was looking forward to India England yesterday. Which was Saturday for everyone listening, and that would have been a great. A lot of people are saying that's going to be the final, but I was
Hold your
excited.
predictions. We will wrap up this week's episode with predictions from each of us, and of course, we'll write them down, and you can basically tell us how wrong we are eventually going to be, because that's how this game works. But yeah, DJ, washouts. Let's nothing really quickly to talk about warm ups, but disappointing. I'm hoping for me the rain kind of just got out of the way, and we're done with it now, and we'll have a great World Cup with lots of cricket.
Yeah, I'm sure it was 38 hours for England to get there from
The
uh,
pictures of
from
them on that plane into Guwahati are pretty amazing, actually.
yeah, with Johnny Besto titling them chaos and stuff. So just one small correction, Ashwin, before you start the episode. I'm actually in India, like the World Cup.
Oh, that's right.
So
You're ready.
for some of your regular listeners, the background is different from what you're used to, but
Yeah,
we do this podcast from all over, right? So
wherever.
super excited.
All right.
It's all
Well,
happening.
with that, let's jump in. A couple of quick notes, right? One, I mentioned this. We will wrap up this week's episode with semi-final predictions from each of the hosts. So stay tuned for that, because, like I said, you love to tell us when we're wrong, and one of us at least will be, unless we happen to all have the same predictions and they happen to all be right. Two, we are playing fantasy cricket yet again this year. We played every year for the IPL. We've played it for big tournaments before. So get ready for that. We'll share some details in the show notes on our Discord or Twitter, etc., or X, whatever we're supposed to call it now. So on our socials, you'll see details for our fantasy cricket page. Join us, play against us. We'd love to have a good time. Varun, who won of the three of us? Who did best in this year's IPL? I can't recall. Or DJ, do
I
you
mean,
remember?
actually, the our memory sucks. So the fact that you're asking it probably
No,
means
it
you
was
did.
clear. It was clearly
Yeah,
me.
so
It
I
was
can't
clearly me.
remember anything. So
But
That's
Varun
great.
stopped playing about halfway through. He just gave up.
And he still
I
beat
but
you,
I
I think.
gave a game comeback, dude. Like I still beat you.
Didn't he still beat you
Whatever.
despite?
That you remember.
Oh,
Kuchui.
selective memories. Right. So the format for this episode, as we jump to it, we're going to go through each of the 10 teams. This is I think, a unique kind of World Cup format. I can't recall the last time we played it, but 10
No,
teams.
this was 2019 also.
Okay, so 10 teams. Every single team plays 9 matches, so no groups or anything, and then the top four make the semifinals. So the math is pretty straightforward. Each of us will pick 3 teams, and we're going to go through them, and I'll help make sure we're staying on track. Strengths, weaknesses, and then kind of one X factor. It can be a player, it can be a skill set, it can be something else, but strengths, weaknesses, and an X factor. And we're going to go, I guess, sort of in reverse order of rankings. So, DJ, why don't you start us off with the Netherlands? I know, obviously, we want to spend a lot of time talking about the bigger teams, but let's make sure we cover all of them. So, run us through the Netherlands 2023 World Cup preview.
Yeah, I'll kick you guys off. The Netherlands, the only associate nation in the 10. They came through some pretty interesting qualifiers. I think there was one game where they chased 277 in 44 overs. Bas de Leede put in an all-round show. He took 5 wickets and scored a 50. Tim de Leede's son, I think, or relative, I guess. Um, yeah, Logan Van Beek had a super over against the West Indies. If you remember, Ashwin, I think you were watching that game where he hit every ball for a boundary while chasing like 370 odd. It was a
Unbelievable.
crazy qualifying campaign, right? So yeah, I mean, I guess it's their fifth World Cup, so we keep thinking of them as a minnow, but they've played the World Cup now 5 times. As I said, the only associate nation. Um, Prediction we'll come to it later, but I think it's pretty clear that I think they might not qualify for the semis. They might even finish last, but they might have a surprise or two. They've beaten South Africa and I think Ireland at last year's World T20. Uh, they had New Zealand 30 for 5. They ran Pakistan close a couple of games in the last year or so. I think they lost by 9 runs and 17 runs. So they lost by 1 run as well. So there's a lot of close calls. So I'd say their weakness is not being able to close out the big games, right? So where you've got to start, you don't know how to get over that next level to win the game. Their strength is obviously they're an unknown quantity in a way. They had a camp where they asked for Indian bowlers to send in videos and they practiced against them. They put in a lot of prep actually.
Did
So
they
they
ask for the
prep
guy
and
whose action is like Ash?
no, that I think
Remember
was
the
in Australia,
that was the
right?
Aussies, yeah. But remember
Yeah, that
they
was
picked him because
Australia.
his action was like Ash, and they
But
didn't
they
help
did a
him at all.
similar thing here. They got like four left arm bowlers, four seamers, some of them RCB, Chennai Super Kings, etc. And they've done a batting camp. So they've actually prepared for it a lot more than some of the other teams have prepared in these conditions. So I'd say they probably surprise us with one or two wins. But yeah, their strength is their all round capability, as I've already mentioned. Fast delete, pretty good. Um, yeah, I think
I
that's
I
pretty much
I
it.
I wonder if they practiced left arm in swinging Yorkers, because just yesterday in the warm up game, Mitchell Stark rocked up, took like 4 steps in his run up and got a hat trick.
Seriously? I
Yeah,
That's
missed
he,
actually
that.
quite funny since
he,
all the lefties that they picked, all the net bowlers they picked were lefties.
he just rocked up there, and he was bowling the like deliveries that he was bowling to Ben Stokes in 2019 World Cup with like 4 or 5 step run up. Okay,
And it
like
was early too. Like the first and third over of the match, right?
they were 15
he
for
got
three.
he got Maxo down, Wesley Baresi and Bastille, like three of their stalwarts.
Yeah.
Jeez. Wow. All right. Thank you, DJ. Good rundown. Interesting to kind of hear, and we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how they do. Varun, let's keep this going and go to the next team in terms of kind of our arbitrary sort of ranking, if you will. Afghanistan. Why don't we walk us through their World Cup preview?
Yeah, so the great thing about Afghanistan is we've seen so much of them in the last few years, not just in the IPL, in T20 cricket, I think in India as well. So they are an exciting team. They're the kind of team who one always roots for, because they've got the all rounders and the bowlers to really kind of get to their job and get close. But I feel like every year they're just a little bit disappointed by their batting. And so for me this year, let's talk weakness first. The weakness is going to be essentially the batting. Now, I haven't seen too many of these guys play, I'll be very honest. But Gurbaz is definitely an explosive guy at the top in T20s and for KKR. I think he's an asset. But after that, whether it's Ibrahim Zadran, Riaz Hassan, Captain Shahidi, who is a good middle order bat and a stable guy. For me, the catch is none of these guys are really averaging above 30. And if you look at most teams, somebody in your top 3 or 4 would be touching 40, 45. And so to me, that is going to be a big weakness. Now, if I was to play that out, I think it's almost in kind of Afghanistan's benefit against, let's say, some of the I don't want to say anything wrong, but let's just say they're playing Netherlands, right? I almost feel like it's better for them to kind of bowl first, get them out for a lower total, and then not be so reliant on the batting versus trying to chase a bigger total. So I think very clear weakness for me. I think strength is really in terms of the all-rounders in the bowling, man. Like you've got, let's just let me put strength down to spin bowling. Like if I had to say that, Mohammad Nabi, Rashid Khan, Noor Ahmed, and Mujibur Rahman. And I think you could see a situation quite likely where all 4 of these guys are playing in the playing 11. That is going to be a handful, and so it'll be very interesting to see the pitches they play on, the grounds. Does that favor spin? Because I think if it does, you could potentially have like 35 out of 50 overs in a game completely being choked by these 4 spinners. And to me, that is something that the other teams would need to look out for. So that's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say the last point is also that don't discount their pacers, man. Like Faruqi and Naveenul Haq are effective. And I believe Naveenul Haq is actually retiring from ODIs after this. That's what I read, probably to focus on the shorter format of the game. So, in summary, I think good experience in India. Bowling, very strong.
Is DJ laughing because of the Gautam Gambhir Naveerul Haq stuff?
Yeah,
Because as soon
It
as you
has
brought
to
him
be.
up, that's all I could.
That's the only thing the guy is now famous for: mangoes and Gambhir.
I genuinely couldn't think of
Like,
anything else about Naveen but Gambhir.
like I can't
Yeah.
think of his bowling action or what he's done in his life,
I
other
mean, I
than
can
his
remember
fight
his
with
bowling
Kohli.
action, but yeah, but he took 3 wickets, but we can only remember the mangoes and Kohli.
It is great.
Yeah,
All
so there
right.
you have it, man. So I think a decent team, but definitely one of the like with the batting, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, I didn't realize that stat you said about top order batting and averaging in the 30s because it puts in perspective a little, not to make everything about India as you do, but Shubman Gill, 35 ODIs into his career, averaging 66 and striking at above 100. I mean, those are unheard of kind of numbers, right? To have a newer player in the setup averaging over 66 is is unbelievable. But let's keep it going. I'm going to keep this preview train going, and I will talk a little bit about Sri Lanka. And it's been really interesting, right? I remember Varun in the start, kind of early Asia Cup or just before that. You and I were talking a little, and we're like, man, there's a lot of guys in this side we don't even really recognize. Sri Lanka blows hot and cold a little bit. The last time they won a World Cup was 27 years ago now, and India fans will remember the 1996 World Cup very well. But 27 years since they won. So obviously completely different setup. The board has been plagued with issues. They've had some players coming in and out. They haven't just haven't found the rhythm they want. Because you could argue since the 96 World Cup, they then reached the semis in '03, the finals in '07, finals in 2011. So they had a phenomenal stretch there for call it 15 years between 96 and 2011. Coming into this tournament, I would say it's very difficult to say because of the 50 all out in the final, but they had a pretty good Asia Cup. They won some close matches. They stepped up. They, were showed up as pretty balanced. Some batters did well when they needed, the bowlers did, but it is very, very difficult to look beyond losing the final by getting 50 all out. And so that's why Sri Lanka will be missing a little bit of that momentum you need, but I think they need to go back to it and say we had an excellent Asia Cup, but for the final. So as I looked at the strengths, there's a few different things, right? I think in summary, I'll say this is going to be a bowling led side, so not actually dissimilar to Afghanistan, right? You have Pathirana, who's kind of evolved into this excellent death bowler. Thikshana, who we all know, of course, from IPL exploits, and then the new kid on the block, who may or may not be my X factor later, but Dunit Lage, right? I, Ashwin called him out on Twitter. None of us really knew what to expect. Batted really well, bowled really well. So I think their bowling as a whole is what I would call their strength. Uh, their biggest weaknesses, I wrote down two, but one, their captain is Dasan Chanaka, and I think I saw a stat that said in the last 20 odd games he's averaging five or six runs. He's just not been able to hit. I think the Sri Lankan media is pretty clearly saying this World Cup is him re-auditioning or auditioning to keep his captaincy, and so that's really tough, right? I think sides have had that before, but going into a big tournament where your captain is struggling and is fighting for their place in the side is really tough. And of course, the missing in action Hasaranga will be really, really missed for Sri Lanka, right? He's injured. He's been ruled out for the whole tournament. So I would mark Hasaranga as a pretty big weakness, is the absence as a pretty big weakness. And finally, what I've said from an X Factor standpoint is I said this during the Asia Cup, but they have a wealth of batters who can bowl. And so what that comes down to is options. And I link it back to Team India and our struggles with lack of options. But Shanaka bowled a lot. Velalage can bat a decent amount. Dhananjay De Silva bowled. Asalanka has bowled before when he's been needed to. So having options on a day, some of your mainline bowlers are having an off day, especially on spinning wickets. Most of these guys bowl off spin. I feel like give them options. So that's my kind of wrap up. I think they'll be reliant on bowling, and the weak captain is going to be a miss
I thought the X factor would be Dhoni.
for Sri Lanka.
Yeah, because of like Tikshana and
CSK.
Pathirana.
CSK.
Like
I was like, what are you talking about?
what he's given the country. Like that's the X factor, man. These are the two key bowlers.
Yeah, maybe. How long? We're always measuring, right? How many minutes in an episode till MS comes up?
But
Yeah,
but I didn't bring it up this time.
I
Varun
know
brought it up. That's the
it's
best part.
it's
X factor for
confusing.
Sri Lanka
I've
is
trained
Dhoni.
I've trained him well. I mean, you're talking World Cup, you have to talk Dhoni, right? You have to.
I mean, I did mention that they reached the 2011 final, so that was your opportunity to bring them up. But anyway, all right, that's Netherlands, Afghanistan, and Sri Lanka in the bag. DJ, why don't you talk to us a little bit about Bangladesh? And I mentioned the Asia Cup exploits a little, but yeah, let's talk about Team Bangladesh.
Yeah, let's talk about Team Bangladesh now. Their best performance, they've been playing, they've pretty much knocked India out of the 2007 World Cup, if you remember. But that was not their best performance because they went to the quarterfinals in 2015. And if you remember as well, I don't know, Varun, maybe you were out there. There was a no ball controversy about Rohit Sharma because they claimed that Rohit Sharma was outcaught of a high waist high no ball. Of course, India won that. We went on to lose in Sydney. Since then, Bangladesh have they won, I think, 3 games in each of their last few World Cups, including the last one. Um, the drama this time, and just the drama this time, has been between Tamim and Shakib, where Tamim Iqbal is out with apparently a back injury. So first, Shakib made a veiled kind of statement saying taking a injured player to the World Cup is like cheating your country. Didn't say anything about anybody. Then, when Tamim was actually dropped by the selectors, he came out and had an absolute massive go at him because Tamim, in his place, he said, "Selectors asked me to bat down the order, so I can't play for Bangladesh." And then, then Shakib comes out and says, I mean, it's insane. Like the emotion that runs through Bangladesh cricket. Shakib comes out and says, Rohit Sharma can bat from 7 to become an opener and score 10,000 one-day runs. Who is this guy? Why can't he play for the country? Why can't he do the knee? It's valid point. But a lot of Bangladesh's campaign is now going to just be mired in the politics and the drama of what's happened before. Coming to the actual cricket itself, I think their strength is they've got a younger core of players we've talked about Tawheed Hridoy, right? Hridoy, Shariful, Tanzim, they're all playing their first World Cup. But these guys, I think, were also part of the under 19 World Cup win, the one in which ended in a fight between Yashasvi Jaiswal's boys and and the others, if you remember. So I think this new age Bangladesh team is going to be their strength. They've got, of course, Thaksin. They've got Mehdi Hassan is a bit of a in a bit of doubt for the World Cup. But I think the strength is going to be their new blood that's coming through. Their weakness, I mean, I just think their weakness is all the drama that's gone on beyond. You're not in the right mind space to be playing a big tournament. Even someone like Harsha Bhogle has tweeted about this. So I think there's too much distracting them off the field to allow them to do well on the field. And their X factor, I know it sounds really boring. Maybe it's not even an X factor anymore, but it's Shakib
Shakib,
himself, right?
you knew you were going to say Shakib,
It's
man.
too boring.
No, you didn't
It's too
research. You didn't
boring.
do any prep. You just said, let's look up the
But
gossipy news that's happening with Tamim and talk about Shakib. I'm just kidding.
But I mean,
Just
after all the
message.
drama that's gone on, he in the last World Cup he averaged 87 with the bat. He I think took a lot of wickets as well. He took like over 15 wickets in the last World Cup as well. So I mean, he's now the captain. It's up to him to overcome the off-field drama. So he needs to bring that X factor to the team. So I think the strength is new blood coming through, and we saw those guys playing with like good heads on their shoulders. And I think maybe I could have swapped like
I'm just
Tawheed
giving you a
Hridoy, but
hard
I
time.
think Shakib's too big, man. He's too big a name not to pull out from the hat.
Well said. All right. We've got 4 teams in the bag. If you've hung tight with us, stick around because we're going to keep going through. We got big teams coming, and of course, we will wrap up with Team India. Varun, let's go to Team South Africa before we take a break after 5 of them. So walk us through this preview. I'm excited to hear this because it's been a fascinating journey for South Africa in the last few years.
Yeah, so I was going to say this and then I thought, let me stop myself, but then let me say it. Like, I am bullish on South Africa this time. Okay. The reason I'm saying it this time is because if you think about it, I can see TJ choking himself. Um, the reason that I'm bullish this time is because we actually have not picked them in the last few years as contenders for like semis and stuff. So I feel like from this, whole phase of maybe 15 years where they were the team to beat and lost in knockout games, there was like a 5-year phase where they went through a transition. They lost their, big guys like Faf and AB. And for a while, it took them some time to rebuild. And we and fans across the world were not calling them the favorites walking into a World Cup. Now, I don't necessarily think they're the favorites, but I think they're bullish, and I'm just going to give my one semi-final spot right now for all the listeners. I am calling South Africa in the semi-finals. All right, so I put my money where my mouth is. The batting lineup is a strength. Okay, Bavuma captaining De Kock, who's also playing his last ODI World Cup and ODIs, followed by either Rasi or Riza, right? One of them at number three. And now check out this middle order, okay? Aiden Markram, David Miller, Klassen. That's your middle order, followed by potentially Marco Janssen, right? Now, to me, that is so the top six for sure is a strength. The X factor for me is Miller and Klassen. I feel like teams are going like I feel like they will never be out of the game, right? Even if there's a ridiculous amount of runs per ball required. With these two guys, I just feel like they're going to pull off some upsets. And I said this in 2011 as well. I've said this at all big tournaments. I think your 4, 5, 6 or 5, 6, 7 are the ones who their weakness is hard. It's hard to kind of point out a weakness, but it has to is not playing. I don't think he was in the best of form, but I think he's a very good bowler, and for him to be out will be a big miss for South Africa. Ngidi and Rabada, very experienced, very good bowlers, but I feel like, yeah, coupled with Janssen, they might be that pace attack. But from what I have seen of Rabada in the last few years in the IPL in India, he does get tonked quite a bit. So he's going to have to watch that, and then they might have to come up with a strategy to avoid bowling him towards the end because his record hasn't been so great, if my memory serves me right. And then it's going to come down to the spinners. They've got Shamsi and Maharaj. I don't know whether they play one or both, given it's in India, but overall strong team, X factor, two guys in the middle order, weakness bowling, because I don't see any other weakness in the batting. That's that thing, or the all-rounders. I think that's my summary.
Yeah, when you were starting to go down the six and along with options, you just start to realize how loaded this side is. I mean, Klassen has evolved into an outstanding player, including the massive knock recently. And oof, I'm personally also really excited for South Africa. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they show up to the party. All right, half the teams are done. We're making good timing. Thank you both for the really good summaries. We are going to take a very quick break here. We will come back and talk about the remaining five teams in the T20 in the ODI, 2023 World Cup. Quick preview. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm being mocked by DJ for my Freudian slip, where clearly I'm hoping this was a T20 World Cup, but it's actually ODIs, 50 over format. You got to buckle down for 8 hours to watch it. And we've previewed five teams. Again, if you're watching us live on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you want to engage with us, we're live. We're in the chat. Send us your messages. We'll read them. We'll try to take some questions at the end. But for now, we're going to keep going into the remaining five teams. And I will do the next one. And I've been assigned by DJ to preview New Zealand. Gosh, New Zealand is a really interesting ODI World Cup team, right? Although they haven't won, they've reached, I looked back and I realized 2007, 2011, 2015, 2019, every semifinal. They've reached the semifinal, all four of the last four. I want to say lost the final in 2019, but they sort of tied the final in 2019, which is a pretty important distinction, right? After the heartbreaking 2-day international against Team India. And so it's really interesting though. And then they beat Bangladesh recently. I think there was 2-1 in Bangladesh. And so that's an interesting kind of warm-up series, right? Fairly similar conditions, spinning tracks, etc. So they're coming off of a series win in the subcontinent. I think it's very difficult to write a side like New Zealand off, right? So obviously, aside from saying their strength is their track record in the last four, I'm saying their strength to me actually is their bowling and their spin bowling, which is not something I've thought about saying for a side like New Zealand before or in a long time, and that's why I flag it, right? They've historically been an excellent seaming side, an excellent batting side, etc. They haven't really had great spinners, and you look at obviously what Mitchell Santner has grown into, but then Ish Sodhi, Rachin Ravindra, they've got options now. And that really starts to open up how balanced they look like as a side playing in India. So I'm saying the recency and coming in with form against Bangladesh, and although they've had a pretty bad 2023 with ODIs in total, they're coming in with some momentum, and I think their spin is a big strength for them. The weakness, and this is crazy, and I read this somewhere, is that I think their side is just aging. And that's a really hard way to articulate it for for those of us who've grown up seeing a lot of these players. But 12 of the 15 selected in the squad are over 30. Now I haven't looked at others to compare how that stacks up. I think there's a couple others that are older, but Williamson at 33, Bolt at 34, Saudi at 34. We've seen Williamson and Saudi right now have been dealing with injuries. Their bodies haven't been able to keep up the way they have. And this is a long tournament, like I mentioned up front, right? 9 guaranteed matches, plus then a semi and a final if you have to. Traveling around India, it's gonna be tough. So for me, their weakness, there's the slight potential struggle will be the fact that they're an aging side. And then finally, the X factor for me, and I was going to just say Devon Conway, but I'm going to now broaden it a little and say, as good as their spinners have become, their batters have also gotten much, much better at playing spin. And so Devon Conway as a lefty is an example, outstanding player of spin. You don't have to say a lot about Kane Williamson, Tom Latham, who've been good players who spin over the years. But then you add in somebody like a Glenn Phillips, who's absolutely maverick kind of cricketer and has got and bowls spin himself now and has gotten a lot better at playing spin. So for me, if this side has always had good pacers, always been good at batting against pace, now has good spinners and has getting better at batting against spin, starts to look like an overall well-rounded side. So, not getting into my semi-final predictions just yet, but feeling very interested about New Zealand's overall prospects, and that's what I'll leave it at for now.
And just one comment, the ease with which they beat Pakistan in that warm-up game. I was watching it, and my friend and I were sitting in, I think, some Chapman and Nisham were batting, and the ratio of runs required per ball was still probably at like 8 or 9, and he was like, "This is New Zealand's game easy." I was like, "No way, man! Like this is New Zealand's going to struggle," and they just went 6 after 6 after 6, and with such ease. So you're right, man. When you talked about the kind of big names, but their middle order is also has that ability to hit.
Yeah, I mean they conceded 345 against Pakistan in the warm up, right? And Rachin Ravindra made 97. Kane got a 50. Daryl Mitchell got a 50, and then Mark Chapman, who I didn't mention, who I guess is the former Hong Kong cricketer, Hong Kong captain, who's now playing for New Zealand, also got some runs. So absolutely right, the momentum continued into the warm ups.
And remember, they're playing a couple of games at Dharamshala, which will help there.
The quicks,
Seam
the
attack.
quicks, as long as they're healthy and fit, I think it'll be great for them. All right, let's keep this going. DJ, you're currently in India, but home for you is England. Let's talk
Okay.
about the 2019 World Cup champions / tied champions.
I guess I had this coming, right? So I've assigned the teams myself. Let's start about their record in World Cups. For the longest time, they were always the bridesmaid, never the bride. They did 3 finals, lost all of them, and then finally tied a final. So they still haven't won a World Cup final. They've won a World Cup though. So reigning champions.
Do we think we'll ever let that slide, or we're going to call it tied a World Cup final for the rest of time?
They won the World Cup, so they won the trophy, right? It was an incredible game of ODI cricket. Of course, I mean, it was a magnificent game, probably the greatest ODI ever. But England went into uncharted territory by winning the World Cup. Owen Morgan's men lifted it at Lord's in 2019 and kind of broke the hoodoo of not having won it. Since then, they've also won the T20 World Cup. So they are currently the holders of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup as well as the ICC Men's ODI World Cup, which is a pretty impressive achievement. It's all come from a reset of their game after 2015. They were embarrassed. They were knocked out of the tournament by Bangladesh. And they reset everything and they went into complete like ballistic mode, hitting the ball from ball one, thumping it everywhere, picking bowlers that could bowl fast, picking good spinners, getting all-rounders. Ben Stokes is the big news that's come back out of ODI retirement, which is pretty convenient, right? If you think about, we haven't talked about a lot of this stuff, but Ben Stokes has just decided to come out of ODI retirement. So it seems like they've got some WhatsApp group where they just like message, hey, anyone want to come out of retirement? Like, hey, Moin, want to play some Ashes? Then Joss messages this guy, hey, you want to come out and come to India and play the World Cup? But anyway, he scored 180 odd against New Zealand, which was impressive. Um, but I mean, the other thing is Harry Brook. He's made his way into the squad at the expense of Jason Roy, who I kind of feel a little bit bad for. He had a couple of back spasms and he finds himself out of the tournament. And I mean, he played a crazy part in the 2019 World Cup win. Remember, England had a dip in the middle of the tournament before they bounced back against India, and Jason Roy was a big part of that onslaught against India. And he's the guy who threw the ball in on the last run out to seal the game. So I feel a little bit bad for that guy. That said, let's get to their strengths, weaknesses, and X factor. So I'm going to go with their strengths. Maybe might be their batting. I think they scored 498 once against Netherlands. So I think it's probably safe to say their batting's their strength. David Malan is in incredible form as well. I mean, Ben Stokes is in good form. Joe Root a little bit worrying, but he's a class player. He's done well before in India. I mean, Josh Butler churns the runs out for his IPL franchise. Johnny Best or Liam Livingston, Moeen Ali, and then you come to the all-rounders: Sam Curran, Chris Wokes, Adil Rashid. All of them, David Willey, they can all basically bat, right? It's insane.
So who
So
opens the
it's
batting for them? Because everyone's name is like
so
everyone's
it's Bonnie
fantastic.
Jersto.
Bonnie,
Bonnie will open.
Bonnie with
Bonnie with David. David.
oh Malan
They've said
opening.
that. They've said Malan will open with
Oh,
Bonnie.
I didn't catch that. Okay, and then you've got like a Joe Root and a Stokes, 3-4.
Yeah, so Joe Root will bat three. Stokes maybe five, depending on
Got
what
it.
the
And Butler bats
what
at like
I
four
what
or
the
six or something. I just can't
five
remember.
six. Yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe Stokes is going to be there four, which is it's probably one, but he's not bowling, so it's okay.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. So they've. I mean, I think their batting is clearly their strength. Their weakness is their bowling, I would say, because I think there was a stat that I read somewhere which said that um, they are the one of the highest average teams since the last World Cup with the ball because they've gone for a lot of runs, which is surprising if you, to be honest. Apparently, India, by the way, they've got the lowest average bowling average since the last World Cup, which is if you think about it, that makes sense because we've got those wicket takers, right? They've got Mark Wood. They haven't got Jofra, but he's a traveling reserve at the moment. They've got a guy called Gus Atkinson. He bowls quick. I haven't really seen a lot of him. But then the rest of it is
Any
Sam
connection
Curran,
to
David
Rowan, do you
Willey.
think?
I don't know,
Okay.
but maybe he's England bean.
There it is. We'll have some halfway
But
bean, Park bean.
but England bean is the original bean
Yeah,
also.
exactly. All right.
So he's England. Okay. Anyway, I don't know whether he's related to Rowan, but so I think the weakness might be their bowling because um, yeah, there isn't like a class act other than maybe Adil Rashid in there, I would say. And we've got a question from Amit Dubey, who's the attacking option in the middle overs. Wood can't play every game, and Stokes is playing with no knee. Yeah, fair point. Maybe Gus can fit in some of the games where Mark Wood isn't going to play because they're kind of similar pace type of bowlers. So maybe that's the answer to that question. And then their X factor. This is a tough one, but I think their X factor this time around. I know I could have gone down Ben Stokes and said that, but he's playing as a batter. I think this time it's going to be David Malan because he looks like he's got a point to prove. He looks like he's in good form, and everyone's going to try and bat around him, I would say. So my pick for the X factor is going to be David Malan. Um, but I'd say England again an aging side, so maybe a slight weakness there. They've got a lot of players that are over kind of 32, 33 years of age, like Chris Wokes, Ben Stokes is over that, Moeen Ali. So of course, actually, I'm going to change my X factor. Sorry, I'm going to change my X factor. I'm going to go with Sam Curran as my X factor.
So for me, I haven't listened to a lot recently of the cricket. I guess they're called the cricket podcast, or some of our friends on British cricket podcast. But they're clearly having the same arguments we are about the 11, right? Because as you're going through, I'm like Malan and Bairstow, Root, Stokes, Butler, and then you start talking about Livingstone, you start talking about Brook, you start talking about Sam Curran, who's now your X factor. You can't fit them all in because you. So I'm assuming England is having the similar kind of debates as we are on that final 11, because Brooke came into the side kind of late, a little controversially. Livingston's been in good form. Milan's been so. DJ, I don't know if you have perspective on that, and or whether you're going to see some rotation from them the way you're hoping India rotates. But yeah, that's the wild card for me.
Yeah, I think I think there will be rotation. There are 9 games. I think the thing with Sam Curran, I'm so torn between Malan and Curran, because Malan will probably play every game, but I think Curran's got that X factor that he can bring to big games, like you saw in the T20 World Cup last year. You saw him bowl at the death. He just brings that big game mentality to it. I've just seen in the chat actually. Ahmed Dubes just mentioned that Malan is his X factor as well. So at least I've got some company in that slightly left field pick. Um, but yeah, I think they will rotate, and I think Sam will play a lot of games.
All right. I'm interested to hear both DJ and Varun's semi-final predictions and if the 2019 champions make the cut, but I'm going to hold on that for now. Varun, let's keep this train going. Last 3 teams. You'll do one, I'll do one, and then we will all talk about Team India. Let's start, Varun, with Pakistan. I know you just watched the make 345 and still lose, so talk me through how you're feeling about it.
Yeah, so I mean, I have to put recency bias out of this, but Pakistan's strength is their top order, very clearly, right? Between Fakhar Zaman, Babar Azam, Rizwan. I think the exact opposite problem to Afghanistan. Like Babar's average in ODIs is like over 58, and the other two are closing 40. Um, and so for me, it's just it's kind of it's kind of the strength that India has, which forces a weakness that India has as well. So the strength is very clearly top order. The weakness for me is actually both the all rounders and the bowling. And let me talk through that just a little bit, okay? And don't, for our listeners, don't get me wrong. I think they are a top team. I just think what happens is sometimes is when a few players get out of form, it just becomes very hard to recover. And let me walk through my thinking. One, I don't think that middle order gets enough game time. Okay. And that's why I said it's similar to India. So you could have a situation where the first 6 games, the top order wins you those games, and your middle order doesn't get game time. And then as it comes to crunch time, they just haven't played enough. The second thing is, I think Shadab Khan is actually one of my favorite cricketers. Okay. I think he's such an asset to that team. I I have watched him in the last few World Cups, and he has been the best player. I think like he's close to player of the tournament level types. Like I just really like him. But what we saw him bowl to Rohit Sharma, and in a few games after that, was absolute trash. Okay, so he needs to get back his momentum because otherwise Pakistan is in trouble. So Shadab's form is one. I think the fact that Naseem is not there is the second. And I think the third thing for me that people need to watch out for is if you play out the first 10 overs against Shaheen and maybe Haris Shroff, although I think Haris Shroff bowls first change, against Shaheen mainly, I think you're in with a shot against Pakistan because you've got enough wickets and you know that they've got some part-time bowlers and that you can accelerate. However, if you give 3 wickets to Shaheen in those first 10, 12 overs, I think it's game over for you. So by default now I am saying my X factor is Shaheen because I think he just has that ability to win your game in the first 12 overs. And yeah, there you have it, man. So I think, yeah, Shaheen and Shadab are, if they come good, this team will be really good. If they don't, I think this team will struggle a little bit because their batting is pretty sorted, the top order.
Yeah, really well said. I mean, everything you said about the middle order not getting enough game time is India circa 2015 to 2021, if you will, right? Like only now, I guess, because the top orders become a little less reliable, our middle order is starting to get stronger. But absolutely right, and really, really well said. Right. Varun, if it was hard for you to preview Pakistan, it's hard for me to preview Australia, man. It is just we're down to our second last team. It is such a difficult team to talk about in ODI cricket
So
because
the second half of this podcast has just been the teams that we almost least like.
Yeah, 'cause they-
I've done England. Varun's done Pakistan. And you're doing Australia now.
Also,
And-
it's lined up, but also like we're not that nervous doing a preview about Netherlands and Afghanistan. We're talking about these guys. We know they could lift the trophy here. They're reasonable contenders. I think the summary for me on Australia is they've had absolutely, I mean, maybe not absolutely, but quite fairly horrendous form coming into this tournament. I mean, outside of Mitchell Stark picking up a hat trick against the Netherlands, I think, they were down 0-2 to South, or they were up 2-0 against South Africa, excuse me, and they lost that series 2-3. They obviously lost 0-2 to India and then came back with a consolation victory at the end. And yet, you can never write down 5 times men's 50 over World Cup champions. 1987, of course, was a long time ago, but then that stretch 09, 03, 07, and 15 only hampered by MS Dhoni and Team India. Varun, anything to add before I keep going?
I just saw, I mean, you're talking about the dominance, right, in World Cups. I saw a weird stat that said Glenn McGrath has played only 5 balls across, I think, 4 World Cups.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
That
you're
means
going to talk about
even if he
dominance.
got
I
out
think-
on even if he got out on a first ball duck, that means teams only got 9 wickets against them 5 times in 4 World Cups.
Yep. So, yeah, that's how dominant they were. He's played 5 balls in 4 World Cups. Now,
That is
maybe
an
it's 6, maybe
outstanding
it's 4. I don't know if I got the stat 100% correct, but that's what I read.
I mean, while teams are talking about choosing 8, 9, 10, 11 on batting prowess, McGrath never had to face a ball, man. That's dominance. Yeah, so that's the thing. It's very, very difficult to write off any sort of negative form when you have been this dominant. They just know. DJ mentioned it with Sam Curran, but this side just knows how to show up at World Cups. Period. They just know how. It's just a thing. They just do. So weirdly, I called New Zealand's aging side their weakness. I'm actually calling Australia's experience their strength. So I look down the squad and I say Warner, Smith, Maxwell, Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins. That is a exceptionally experienced side, and they will know how to manage workload. They will know how to balance out coaching each other. Smith is starting to retake a very active role in on-field type of consultation, advice, etc. It's that experience you just cannot write it off. So for me, the biggest strength I'm highlighting for them across the board is their experience, and of course you can go through and their top order and bowlers are both in a good spot. The big weakness I wrote down for them is just depth of spin. I mean, Ashton Agar was ruled out, and so your spinners are basically Zampa and Maxwell. Zampa has been very hot and cold. I mean, he gave 113, I think, which was a record-setting spell, and then basically means you're reliant on Maxwell to offer you spin overs in India. That is, and he's an excellent spinning option in India. Don't get me wrong; he's bowled a lot. He's played a lot of IPL, but to be your second spin option, I think that they're missing slightly. So that makes me a little nervous. And then for Australia, this is a bizarre one because my X factor is actually somebody who was nowhere near the setup till about a month ago. But he has this knack of coming in for concussions and coming in for late in the game injuries. And if you haven't figured out who I'm talking about yet, I'm talking about Marnus Labuschagne. Wasn't in the setup, just wasn't. Then Travis Head got injured. He ends up finding his way back in, and he's now in the squad and will probably play. And so for me, I think, that anchor role he can play, but he knows how to accelerate in ODIs as well. Marnus Labuschagne will be their X factor, and I really, really want to write off the Australian team, but I don't. I never take that risk. I never going to take that chance. DJ, any closing thoughts
No
on Team
Maxi?
Australia?
No Maxi? What about Maxi?
I
Fellow
mean,
took wickets also against us. In the
Yeah,
last
so
game.
for me, I guess I interpreted X Factor a little different than you did. I wouldn't have picked Shakib because it's not an X Factor if he does well, because you're expecting him to do well. The X Factor is the unexpected success to me. So,
Okay, so I'll switch it to Hridoy and the
no,
strength
now
being
you can't change
Shakib.
it that late.
Why
You
can't I
can't
change it? I can
that late.
change it.
So anyway, for those of you
Okay,
watching us
so
on YouTube, it
so your
looks
X
like
factor is no run.
my X Factor is now run.
No run.
Now run. All right, DJ. Let's start with the discussion on Team India, and then obviously we'll see. Hopefully, Varun can join us back. We've talked this at length, so actually not going to spend all that much time talking about it. But
There's been a big change since we last spoke. A
Let's do it.
big change. So 1 month ago, Ashwin, when we sat
Mm-hmm.
and we talked, I think maybe Varun and me actually, when we were talking about before the Asia Cup squad was announced, who the contenders were for that squad. And I said Ravichandran Ashwin should be in the contention because he's just played a T20 World Cup. Why isn't he in contention for an ODI World Cup? It made no sense to me.
I thought I brought him up first. I said, why are we not playing Ash at 8 and if Akshar's?
You
Did you
missed that
bring him up?
episode, I
Okay.
think. It was
Okay,
it
okay,
was
got it.
Varun and me before the Asia Cup.
But of
That we
course I
were
listened
talking
to
about
it
Ashwin
later.
being in the squad, right? Yeah, of course you listened to it later. No, and then Ashwin, but we were talking about Ashwin versus Shardul as a discussion because Akshar was a given as a Jadeja ready-made replacement in our minds, right? Since then, Akshar has had a quadricep injury, which I will not point to my shoulder this week.
This is great.
But and the selectors have gone with him. There was obviously the Washington option, which is a slightly better batting option, but they've gone with Ashwin, and I think that's the right move. That's the right decision that has been made. Of course, there have been some pretty odd comments in the media by L. Shivaramakrishnan about
That
Ashwin
has
being a
been
selfish,
a whirlwind in the last
stats-driven.
24 hours,
What's
man.
happened there? What has
I
gone
don't
on
know
there?
what happened. He
Is there
just
some
said,
background that we've missed? Because they're both from Chennai,
if there is, guys,
Tamil
let us
Nadu.
know in the comments because it has been like what is it like watching a dumpster fire or watching a train wreck? I just couldn't understand what was happening, but I couldn't stop refreshing his feed.
And some of the comments are vouching for me being the one who wanted Ash, by
Yeah,
the
I'll
way.
give you
So,
that. I'll give you that.
okay.
I mean, it
But
doesn't make it right. It's just sure you vouch for
one
him
more vote.
and he got into the team because of an injury. But just to be clear, it doesn't make
No,
it a
but
great decision.
So wait, Varun, let's ask you. What is your take on
Oh,
Ash's
yeah.
side,
So
and does
you're
he
not
play?
happy with this?
Yeah.
No, I'm
You're not
okay
happy
with
with
it.
this?
I'm just saying that the validation feels like he's won us the World Cup. I don't think that's happened.
Okay. Apart from
Exactly.
Kohli, he's the only other World Cup winner in the squad. Just by the way.
Yes.
There was
Yes.
no
And he
Rohit in
hasn't
2011.
played
I guess
ODI in
no.
2015 or
There was no
2019.
Rohit in
Yeah.
20.
Rohit
Yeah.
was tweeting Sanju Samson type shit in 2011. Move on. It's time
Next day, sun will
and he
rise.
apparently asked for feedback. If anyone can tell me what I need to do.
So does that
And
mean Sanju Samson will be captain in 2035?
yeah, pretty much.
On
Only you
that
could have done
logic?
that math, and we can't question if that's correct.
Sun will come up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
No, so
But I
sorry,
mean, but
I
there's
don't mean
been
to
not
stop.
not enough good tweet action though. Like Raidu last time, 3D glasses and all. There
Yeah.
hasn't been enough of that.
So that's
Only
why
one
Shiva
Sanju.
Ramakrishnan showed up, man. He gave us some good Twitter action. Okay, so Varun, what's the quick take on action in the squad?
No, I think with Ashwin in the squad, suddenly the strength actually becomes spin bowling. So don't get me wrong, I don't have a problem. Now that he's in the squad, I would say play him because I think the debate is always Ashwin versus Shardul. It's not Shami versus Shardul as we discussed in our last episode. So yeah, he's in. I would say play him. I think he's a stable bat. I I do think that an Akshar would have won you a game if it was 25 of the last 10. I don't think an Ashwin can do that. I hope I'm proven wrong, but I have no problem with this. I'm just not 100% convinced this is the move that India has been waiting for to win the World Cup. That's all.
I think that's totally fair. I think that's absolutely fair, and it'll be again 9 matches, right? It's a long series. Some of our wickets will favor 3 spinners, and some will favor just the 2, and so it'll be very, very interesting to see. Guys, is it fair to say, without putting words in anybody's mouth, we're all kind of in agreement that weaknesses for Team India is not even middle, but lower order batting, right? I think the fact that we've been discussing that number 8 slot, number 9 even, we've talked about how we play 3 number 11s at 9, 10, 11, and you've talked about how England bat till basically 10, depending on the setup they choose and stuff. Is it fair to say Team India's weakness is lower order batting?
No,
Yeah,
I don't think it is.
for
I
It's
me,
think
not.
Team India's weakness is playing under pressure differently. Like England will just go crazy in every game, and that has risks where they implode for like nothing. It could happen that way as well. But we start playing differently when we're under pressure chasing. I don't know that, or like you saw what happened last time. You saw what happened in the T20 World Cup. You make the semis and then we start playing differently. That for me is our biggest weakness. It's not whether we bat someone at 8, 9, whatever else. This team is good enough to win the World Cup, in my view.
Varun, what's your take?
yeah, I mean it's probably a take on what DJ is saying, but I do think that uh, the uh, the ability of your lower order to play like Australia or England's lower order is a weakness for me. Now that could be
Yeah.
due to change in the fact that they change how they play. It could be that a Pandya, Jaddu, and Ashwin, especially Pandya and Jaddu, may not necessarily be the six hitters or boundary hitters that they were 5 years ago in 2019. I'm not discrediting them at all. I just
Yeah.
think they've matured and evolved. And I think that's where that whole Sky piece comes in. But anyway, let's not get into that whole debate
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you have a little bit of a rejigging of your order, and basically if you're a little bit flexible in your approach when, sorry for this phrase, but when shit hits the fan,
Mhm.
I think you're going to get the best out of these guys. I think if you stick to a rigid approach and when things go wrong, then I think that's the issue.
All right, DJ, let's start with you. Team India X Factor, and then we'll go to our semi-final predictions.
Kuldeep.
Kuldeep,
Kuldeep Yadav.
Come on, you had to say Ashwin, dude. You were getting all the
After all that.
validation for Ravichandran.
But Ashwin is like the 15th place in the squad, dude. I mean, yeah,
Right.
but it's Kuldeep for me. That is the X factor. The new and
Varun, what
improved
about you?
Kuldeep 2.0.
What is it? Is it Kul K? What is happening? I can't tell what's
KLR.
Okay,
KL Rahul.
happening.
I thought he was going to go KK for King Kohli, but he went
Hashtag
with
KLR.
L in the
No.
middle.
he's my X factor, man. I think he's my X factor.
What do you think
Mine
his
is
strike
gonna
rate will
be-
be?
I don't know, but he's going to be the X factor.
But it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Overrated.
Overrated.
That was a chance.
Mine, for anybody who's listened to our show for a while, mine will be a little controversial or out of left field. I think Surya Kumar Yadav is going to show up at this World Cup. I've been very vocal saying T20 form is not equal to ODI form. Now that we've backed him, now that he's coming in with momentum, I think he's going to stamp his seal of authority on this World Cup. So for me, he's going to be our X factor if he gets in.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
10 teams. That's a lot to cover. We've done well. This has been
52
fun.
minutes.
It's got me
Not
fired
bad.
up about the upcoming World Cup. Now it's time to write in stone your predictions for the final four teams.
So
We are gonna
Varun's
go
got
through-
essay already.
Make sure it's written down so that you don't get to listen to the other two and then change, so that you choose to be a team player. But Varun, why don't we start with you? Why don't you go through your four? I'll go second because I've seen DJ writing, so I trust that he won't change his. And then we'll round it out with DJ. So
Khud
top
ka
four.
bhai hai.
Ah,
I don't trust him.
all right.
Yeah. So for me, it's India, England, South Africa, and the last one is very challenging, but I'm gonna put 5-time world champions as my fourth.
Okay. So India, England, South Africa, and Australia. I will go next. And I mean, some of this is going to be universal, but I got India, I have England. I also have South Africa because I'm just really excited about them this World Cup for some reason. I'm just really excited. And then I have New Zealand. I just think Kane and Saudi and Bolt, even though they're probably not the best of the 10 teams on paper, I think they're going to have a point to prove and they're going to show up. So for me, one difference versus Varun's prediction. Let's watch DJ come out with Afghanistan, Pakistan,
definitely
Netherlands,
gonna have
Bangladesh.
Netherlands.
Because
Netherlands,
So I do-
Bangladesh, Afghanistan,
let's see if we
Pakistan.
can predict.
You're laughing.
He's definitely got Pakistan in there.
He's for sure got Pakistan.
I can't-
India,
The last one is
England,
Pakistan.
New Zealand,
Yeah,
Pakistan.
that I knew. We've done this podcast for so long. I knew you. And I
So tell me the logic for it.
No, I just knew it, man. There's no
Baba.
logic to this. I just knew it. And I also think it's a great pick because I was struggling
Yeah.
with it myself. But yeah.
So I've got India. I think they are the favorites. I mean, 2011, what a moment. The last time the World Cup was played here ended with a ball being deposited over, long gone at the Wankhede. England, world champions. They've got enough resources. They've got the spin of Adil Rashid and Moeen Ali. They've got quicks. They've got batters. Their worry will be imploding on a big day. May not happen. New Zealand, literally, I keep struggling with this team so much because they overachieve every single time. They've made every World Cup you can think of. They've made the semis. It's completely ballistic. They're like a tournament team that is better than the sum of its parts. And even before the game, if you don't think they're good, they will do something and they'll make it. They'll scratch and fight their way to a semi-final. So, and then Pakistan, for me, they're just familiar with these types of conditions. They have the likes of Shaheen, they have the batting, they've got spinning all-rounders. Who can do more than, as you say, Shadab may come back into form. He's not had a great, and there's Saud Shakil. There's lots of different things they can throw at this. Naseem is a big miss. I would have definitely had them in if he was playing. But that's my thinking behind the fourth pick of Pak. And I mean, what better than an India-Pakistan final on the 19th of November?
That's it.
Ahmedabad.
That's it. All right. So
Okay,
all
and are we
have
doing
been-
predictions for top run scorers and top wicket takers?
Sure. Let's do it on the fly, really quick. I don't have mine picked out yet. So if you do, go for it. Top
Varun?
run scorer and top wicket taker.
I mean, I'll top run scorer Gill. Let me think about the other.
Gill. Okay, that's not a bad shout actually. I'm gonna go with King Kohli. as the
I
top
was going to
run
go with
scorer.
that too. All right.
I've got him. You can't copy now.
Okay.
Fastest finger first.
All right. I'll go with Rohit. Let's round out the top India top three.
Bus
This is
top
prediction.
three.
That's it. We're the most.
So no,
most
are we an Indian cricket podcast or something?
What? Yeah, you would. Think.
But I mean,
Now our top three wicket takers will be Bumrah, Shami, Kuldeep.
But even if your top three fail in the semis, they can still be the highest run scorer. That's the
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've written down my top wicket taker in this tournament.
Go for it. I haven't thought about it, man.
Trent Bolt for me. Bowls up front, had done well in the IPL, takes wickets at the back end. Junk wickets count towards the top wicket taker, man.
I think I'm gonna go with Shaheen. So we're staying with the
Not a
theme of
bad
lefty
shout.
quick, but I just think he's. I don't. Even though I don't have Pakistan making the semis, I think he's gonna take a bunch of wickets against some of the.
So you've got Rohit, top run scorer, and Shaheen as top wicket taker. So where is this going, dude?
So that one match we'll
Thanks.
see. One match is a wild card, but the other matches
Great.
Rohit will do well. Shaheen will do well too. So. And let's be clear, I didn't think about this ahead of time. So
Yeah,
this
even
is
I
just
didn't think about I'm just going to say Sam Curran.
Today we're not getting game.
Nice.
Really?
He doesn't look like he's a sure shot in the 11 to me. At least.
Yeah, but he's like Ashwin for them.
Yeah, so
Basically.
that means he's 15th in the squad. You said.
Oh, so he's
He's
not.
like, yeah.
Really? Oh, shit.
I don't know. I was looking at their squad.
No, he.
Okay,
I mean,
then I'm-
I think he'll
then I'm
play a
gonna
few
say-
games.
Okay, then I'll say Kuldeep. because-
Just say Bumrah.
Just say Bumrah,
Easy.
man.
No,
Just close it.
Kuldeep.
Gill and Bumrah.
Because, Gill and Bumrah. That's why.
That's it. All
Too
right.
easy.
Wrap,
I've
we're
written all
wrapping
this
it up.
down, by the way.
I know. I've got it written down too. I got it typed because I'm a little more younger millennial than you are, older millennial. So.
Dude, mine's a remarkable tablet. What are you saying?
Oh shit! Seriously, you're like
yeah.
writing on a tablet.
If Remarkable wants to sponsor us,
The
please.
fact that I don't even know what that is really scary to me. Actually,
Okay, guys,
That's
don't look it up
remarkable.
until we give you an affiliate link.
it's pretty
That's
remarkable.
remarkable.
All right. I can't think of a better way to wrap up this World Cup preview than we don't have the technology to put it on the screen, but a comment that came in from Sachit Jha that says, "Bro, we want Kedar Jadhav." And
That's
Cage
it.
over 27.
I'm out.
Cage for 27.
That's
Mic
it.
drop.
You guys.
that's it.
I can't.
That's it. That's all we got. Thank you for joining us. This has been great. This has been fun. I'm fired up for the World Cup. I mentioned at the start, but we will post our fantasy league code on all of our socials, but mostly check Twitter, check Discord as well.
The show notes as well. We should be
And
able
the
to
show
put it
notes.
in
We
the show
love to play fantasy cricket against you all. It just makes for a fun time. And the games that India is not in, it gives us a little more reason to be invested and watch and follow. We will be back every week to talk about everything that happened during that week. We'll try to see if during India midweek games we can do a quick reaction type of episode. Stay engaged with us. We love the World Cup season, and it is going to be a really fun time. Thank you so much, DJ Varun. Great to have you both on. Lovely to do kind of a full deep dive into the World Cup. And thank you all for listening. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button at One Tip One Hand on all socials. Send us messages, post us reviews, leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcast if you haven't already. What are you waiting for? This has been the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast, the ultimate 2023 Cricket World Cup preview. We are signing off, and we will see you next week after the World Cup has started.